Welcome to Reddit Tea Time. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Me, 50 male, and my wife, 49 female, have a 23-year-old daughter. She has a good job and lives in a house in the suburbs. She has been renting a house since she got a job. Our daughter doesn't really tell us about her social or love life. Even when we ask, she just gives us vague answers. My wife hates this. She feels like she is entitled to know about our daughter's private life, i.e., her social life, work life, love life, sex life, kinks, etc. It turns out that for about 6 months, our daughter has been seeing a 43-year-old man. I don't know if they're dating or friends with benefits. I'm not sure, but my wife found this out when she was helping our daughter move into her house. She had gotten a copy of her key, so when my wife wants, she can go into her house, and she doesn't need to call our daughter to let her know. She can just walk in. At first, I didn't know about the key, but when I found out, I was in shock. My wife found out about my daughter dating the older guy by secretly following my daughter around to see where she goes and tracking her phone. She followed them back to her house, and she demanded to know what was going on. However, my daughter told her to leave. She refused, and my daughter said if she didn't leave, she would call the police. She left, came home, and told me everything. Obviously, I don't want my daughter to date a man who's 20 years older than her. I think it's gross, but I also think that what my wife did was wrong and an invasion of privacy. However, my wife told me that she's her mother, and because she's only 23, our daughter's business is also her business. I told my wife that our daughter is an adult and lives on her own. If she wants to do this, we may not agree with it, but there is nothing we can do. My wife didn't agree and said, "No, that doesn't mean she can date an older man if she wants." I didn't want to fight with my wife over this, so I just said, "Okay." My wife continued to stalk her and enter her house without asking, and she also stalked and threatened to injure the older man because of this. Because of this, my daughter called the police, and when I told the cops about the situation, they understood it to some extent and gave my wife a warning. They told us what she did was stalking and harassment, and that we needed to leave our daughter alone. If she called them again, they would have to arrest my wife. After this, my wife continued to harass our daughter and her boyfriend. She showed up on her dates and at her house. My daughter then got a restraining order against her mother. I told my wife she needed to stop. All she was doing was making her want to be with the man even more. I told my wife she was breaking the law and that if she continued this, she might go to jail. She asked me if we should give her an ultimatum. Her idea was to tell her that if she continued to see the man, we would never talk to her again, and she wouldn't be a part of our family. My wife said our daughter could be part of our family after she broke up with him. I told her this wasn't a good idea because if he is abusive, we shouldn't push her away. We should still keep a line of communication open, and I told her we shouldn't use our parental influence to try and force her into doing what she does or doesn't want to do. After I told my wife that, she said, "So we should just allow our daughter to do whatever she wants? And we should just accept that?" I got frustrated, and I just said, "Whatever," and left. I texted my daughter, asking her if I could see her. She said okay, and we met for lunch. I asked her why she was seeing a man old enough to be her father, and she told me she was just into much older men. I tried telling her about the red flags of dating someone older, but she still wanted to do it. I told her that I didn't agree with the relationship, but I would support her and be there for her if she needed it. My daughter said, "Thank you." After that, I told my wife about the meeting with our daughter, and my wife got mad at me for doing that. She said, "We are supposed to have a united front." I told her there was nothing we could do except be there for her, but my wife is still adamant about doing something. I told her our daughter got a restraining order against her. If she keeps this up, she will go to jail. I tried telling her that, and the cops who came by our house tried telling her that, but she still didn't listen. She went to my daughter's house and basically broke in and yelled at our daughter, telling her, "Better end this relationship, now. I don't care what you want or what you are into." Because of the yelling, one of our neighbors called the police, and my daughter told the cops everything. The cops asked if my daughter wanted to press charges, and she did, so my wife was arrested. She was charged with violating a restraining order, breaking and entering, assault, and harassment. I paid my wife's bail, but she still has a trial. My wife claimed that the cops were racist for arresting her, we are a black family. I got frustrated, and I told her no. She was arrested for breaking multiple laws. I told her she should have listened to me and wouldn't be in this situation, but she got mad at me. She told me our daughter disrespected her, and she is tired of the disrespect. She also said it was wrong of me to tell her it was her fault. Also, I told her that it was a little hypocritical of her to claim she doesn't like our daughter's disrespect, even though she constantly disrespects her parents all the time. For example, when we go to their house to stay there for a holiday or just visit, my wife will yell at them and cuss them out sometimes. She told me that was different because she's in her 40s and our daughter is barely in her 20s, so our daughter has to respect us. My wife also got mad at me for telling her it was her fault she got arrested. Am I the bonehead for telling my wife her getting arrested was her fault? Wow, not the bonehead. I'm not sure if we stumbled into the latest script for a reality show. If drama was a sport, your family would be winning gold medals. I'm just waiting for the commercial break to find out what happens next in this riveting series of who's dating who's arrested, and who's upsetting the neighbors. Your family makes reality TV look tame. But seriously, your daughter's love life might be a juicy storyline, but it's her life. Your wife needs to trade the detective hat for a supportive parent one, and let your daughter live her life without the drama. She might want to switch from stalker central to respectful relationships. Breaking and entering isn't the way to win Mother of the Year. For context, my father is bipolar. He was also in a car accident when I was little and had brain damage. The doctors described it as his mind is aging backwards. Even though he's in his 50s, his brain is similar to a 7-year-old today. This hasn't always been the case. When I was growing up, his mind was still that of an adult. I don't know if it was the brain injury or the bipolar, but he would always get irrationally angry and mentally abuse me. I don't remember everything from my childhood, but one thing I do remember is him having an episode that scared me so bad that I ran to my closet to hide. That's the moment I truly started to believe in God. My dad tried to bang the door in and was hitting it so hard that the whole wall moved. There is no way that 13-year-old me was able to hold the door shut on my own. There were no locks. My mom, brother, and everyone on his side of the family always brushed it off and told me that he has a mental illness and I need to brush it off as well. Whenever I had enough and would snap, my mom would always emotionally manipulate me into brushing it off again. Thankfully, I had maternal grandparents who saw through his crap and let me spend most of the time over there. One day when I snapped, it was in front of them and they realized the extent of what was really going on. When I say snapped, it means breaking down on the floor, ugly crying while in the fetal position. My grandparents said I could stay with them full time as long as I agreed to get counseling. By that time, I had been emotionally manipulated into thinking that my feelings didn't matter, that Dad had a mental illness so we all must accommodate him. I even lied to the therapist to make her think everything was okay so I wouldn't have to see her anymore. About a week after I moved into my grandparents', my mom emotionally manipulated me into moving back. She was crying and said that she needs me. I had my last straw when I was in high school. Once I graduated, I spent all of that summer, except nights, at my grandparents' or best friend's house. Then I went to a college hours away and stayed with my aunt on my mom's side to help with costs. I still went down for visits on breaks and holidays. Moving away was the best decision. I was able to get away from it all and still maintain a relationship with my parents. They were still great parents. They helped me with expenses, and came to take care of me when I was sick, etc. While in college, I met my now husband and we now have 2 beautiful children. When I was pregnant with our oldest, my husband and I talked it out and I said that I never want any of my kids to live with the same fear growing up that I did. We agreed that if there was ever an instance where my kids were in danger, we would limit contact or even stop it altogether. We told both of my parents this. Fast forward to this past July. Me and the kids spent 2 weeks with my parents. My husband was with us for a week of that but had to go home early to go back to work. I wasn't worried about that week he was gone. For one, Dad hadn't had any episodes around the kids, and 2, we went camping with their church. My dad has major church face and I knew nothing would happen around them so he could keep his perfect image. When we got back to their house after a wonderful week, we broke into an argument. A normal family argument that was a result of us all being exhausted. I saw a potential disaster coming so I said that when my husband got there, We would just go home that day instead of spending the night and going home the next day. We live hours away. That is when crap hit the fan. Apparently me wanting to go home was the end of the world. Once we were calming down, my dad kept trying to hug me. I absolutely hate hugs, and my husband is the only one who can hug me when I'm upset like I was. I told my dad no. He kept coming at me saying, "Just give me a hug," over and over. I finally had it and shouted, "No," as loud as I could. My dad's response was to kick the empty popcorn tin that my 11-month-old was using as a drum, across the room. He kicked this tin so hard it left a huge dent in the side of it. My dad has balance issues and needs a cane to walk. My 11-month-old was sitting right next to it. It was by the grace of God that he didn't miss and accidentally kick her. I also shudder to think what might have happened if he fell on her. He weighs around 250. At that moment I was emotional. I got my kids and waited for my husband outside. Once he pulled in the driveway, we got out of there as soon as we could. After talking things out with my husband, we decided to limit contact between Dad and the kids. The 3 major holidays and the kids' birthday are the only times he could see them. He also couldn't stay at our house when he was able to come up. Everything has been going great with that arrangement. Fast forward to today and my dad calls me. He tells me that he's sorry for everything and wants me to forgive him. I tell him that the anger was like a poison to me, so I forgave him a long time ago, but that didn't mean I 100% trusted him around my kids. I told him I would talk everything over with my husband and get back to him on the limited contact. I next get a picture texted to me from my mom of her crying. The text read, "My heart hurts because you can't forgive." I told her that I didn't appreciate the emotional manipulation. A conversation followed that basically said I'm not allowed to be upset. Am I the bonehead here? You are absolutely not the bonehead in this situation. Your upbringing sounds incredibly tough, and it's clear you've made choices to protect yourself and your children. Your father's condition might be challenging, but it doesn't excuse actions that put your kids at risk. It's okay to set boundaries, especially when it comes to ensuring your children's safety. Emotional manipulation from your parents isn't fair either. You're doing your best to navigate a difficult family dynamic while prioritizing your children's well-being. Keep putting your family's safety first, and don't let guilt sway you. My brother is the type of person who decides to be their true self without anyone's opinions. He expresses this a ton with clothes. He will wear outrageous stuff often, and his job is online, so he wears his clothes often. Think Lady Gaga type of clothes. One day he is in a dress and the next he is wearing a skin suit. This wasn't a problem until recently, when he started to drop off his son for carpool. My daughter goes to the same school and I used to drive both of them. Ever since he started to do this, he just embarrassed his kid. My daughter refuses to carpool with him and wakes up early for the bus. Now, what I got from my daughter is he is known as the kid with the weird dad and bullied for it. She also informed me that she will not be helping him since she doesn't want it coming onto her since it's her uncle. I'm a little disappointed she won't stand up to them, but I also don't blame her for not wanting to get involved. It was bad today and my brother called me ranting that my daughter should stand up for him. I told him the reason his kid is bullied is due to him and he needs to send him on the bus or stop embarrassing him. He's pissed I blame him and being against his artist freedom. He thinks I am a huge jerk. Not the bonehead. Your brother's artistic expression is quite the show. It sounds like he's living his best Lady Gaga life. Yet, it's also a tough spot when it affects his kid. That's like the ultimate "my dad's cooler than your dad" situation gone wrong. It's a fine line between art and, well, the schoolyard. Hopefully, they can find a middle ground where he can express himself without overshadowing his son's school social scene. I, 31 male, am the only surviving member of my family. When I was 5, I lost my mom and my 4 older siblings in an accident. I was then raised by my maternal grandparents. After the initial accident, my family were told none of us had survived, and so I was a surprise when the news reached them. My grandparents, aunts, and uncles were all thrilled. But my cousins, they were much closer to my siblings. They were similar ages to them. I was 6 years younger than my youngest sister and 8 years younger than my youngest cousin. I wasn't really in with my cousins. With my siblings, we were a tight unit. And they would often reject our cousins when they weren't interested in a baby tagging along. So I think when I was the one who came home, not one of my siblings, I think my cousins hated me for it. We never got close. It was always weird. But then a few weeks ago we were at my grandparents' house for a celebration. It was my husband and me with our 4 kids. My cousins were all huddled together for a while and then started dropping comments to me about the choice to give my kids their own names and not honor my mom or siblings with their names. They asked me how I could claim to love and miss my family when I didn't think to honor them. Or how I could act like they meant the world to me when I don't want my kids to know about them via their names, because they know about them. I did my best to avoid them the rest of the celebration. Then a couple of weeks after that, we were all together again for my aunt's retirement party. The comments continued there and they told me they would have named their kids after my mom or siblings, but their parents had suggested it should be reserved for me and left alone if I didn't because maybe it would be too painful. They told me I hogged my family just like I hogged my siblings back then, and I didn't even love them as much as they did. I became so frustrated that when we were all alone in a room together, because I followed them, I told them they should not be taking their grief out on me. I told them I never tried stopping them from using the names of my mom and siblings for their kids. They never said anything about wanting that to me until they decided to make all those bitter comments. I told them I was sorry they were grieving, but I could not take responsibility for coming back and not my siblings. And that naming my kids has nothing to do with them, so drop the comments about it showing a lack of love. I told them I was not going to be their emotional punching bag and did not deserve their grief being taken out on me. Ever since then they have responded with a lot more anger, saying I have no right to accuse them of that and they have every right to make an observation on my kids' names. It has become so tiring and I'm questioning if I was wrong to say all that I did. Am I the bonehead? You're definitely not in the wrong here. Your cousins seem to be projecting their unresolved grief onto you, and that's not fair. Naming your kids is a deeply personal choice, and it's not anyone else's place to dictate that decision or question your love and connection to your family. You handled their bitter comments with grace until you reached a breaking point, rightfully calling out their unfair behavior. Their continued anger only underscores their unwillingness to understand and deal with their own emotions. You stood up for yourself, setting boundaries against being their emotional scapegoat. Stay strong and continue to prioritize your own family's well-being. What do you think? Please tell me in the comments below. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because you won't want to miss a single Reddit story. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you soon.